Hello, this is Our Money. My name is Dennis Bihus, and today we will talk about the biggest scandals of the past couple of weeks. The most infamous, illegal construction in Kyiv. There are a lot of them in Kyiv, but this one is special. It even has a cult following. The story of an illegal construction on the ruins of a 5th century church. I won't put all the blame on the construction company. They are guilty only of building it, but everyone is responsible for the fact that it still stands there. Because the last time this sore atop a place of history was discussed was as far as 5 years ago, and then everyone just forgot about it, until a radical art intervention sparked the scandal back to life. Now, Maxim Opanasenko's report. You're walking through the city, you reach its historical and most valuable part, and you think, why don't I put a tent right here? Why, I can sell something there, I can live there, invite guests. And to avoid problems with the authorities, the police, land commissions, just call yourself a religious community. It may sound like a joke, but that's exactly how the center of Kyiv at first got a tent, then a log house, then ultimately a full-fledged building. But if you add a bit of spirituality and bliss, the illegal construction will turn into a monastery of the tithes of the Nativity of the Holy Mother of God. That's it, next to the National History Museum, built on the museum's territory, near the foundation of the 5th century Church of the Tithes, one of the most important findings in Kyiv. Aside from the spirituality, it's just an illegal construction. The monastery is a glorified tent. The story of its construction has dragged on for 12 years. Let's find out more. At a religious holiday in 2006, they asked for a permission to install a temporary tent to hold the service. The tent stayed there afterwards, and different structures started to sprout up around it. The tent transformed into a wooden chapel. Then the wood turned to stone. Miraculous transformations made by heavy construction vehicles in a historical place did not remain unnoticed. In 2012, the clergy was fined for the first time. The tent's inhabitants go to court and another miracle happens. The judges come to believe that the appearance of a concrete foundation constitutes renovation, not construction. Thus, the architecture inspection's lawsuit was dismissed. Now it is a permanent structure supported by 3 trailers behind it, which act as warehouses. So it constitutes a building of complex sorts, which unfortunately may still grow more. At court, the clergy referred to alleged stacks of construction approvals from the president and the head of the National History Museum, on whose territory sits the upgraded tent. Tatiana Sosnovska became the head of the National History Museum in 2012. She says that the first thing she did was to ask the clergy to prove the legality of their building. After 3 years, I still didn't receive any documents which prove this. Illegal construction in the center of Kyiv. You don't even have to pay rent. On the contrary, you can make money. The prices are on the website. Perpetual prayer for the dead is $20 per name. You can pay either by card or in cash. In 2013, the so-called monastery gets into the state real estate registry, doubling its size on paper. But this remained unnoticed. On January 25, 2018, the chapel attracts public attention yet again. At night, Kyiv residents Alexei Shumotyuk and Alexander Horban tried to burn its door. The young men were swiftly arrested, and the judge of a court in Kyiv, Tatiana Levitska, decided to put them in jail with bail set at more than $75,000. Indeed, I think this decision was more than the prosecution wanted. Thus, it raises the question of the judge's impartiality. People are trying to influence the situation on both the street and on social media. Shumotuk and Horban won the appeal under the sounds of a rally in their support. The court allowed the young men to be released without bail, with several MPs standing surety for them. The young men may not have been aware that they raised two important questions about this long story. The first one, who is behind it? You can't scare us. God is with us. Speak a word, but it will not stand, for God is with us. You can't scare us. We're at home here. This is Yuri Haron, the self-styled abbot of the so-called monastery. He prefers to call himself Father Gideon. He was born in Odessa, served in Russia and the US, returned to Kiev in 1999, installed the church a tent in 2005. Aside from the religious community in the lucrative spot, Kieran Gideon is also the founder of an organization, the Faithful Cossacks. But you won't find that in the priest's bio. His partner in the Faithful Cossacks was Alexei Silovanov, now a military commander and policeman in the so-called LNR, with the latter sometimes threatening Kiev with a blitzkrieg. When are we going to take Kiev? I don't know if we will. When? Unfortunately, we cannot talk about this. It's classified. Religious and militarized Cossacks were part of the anti-Maidan and then of the Russian hybrid militia on the occupied territories. Silovanov himself worked at the Defense Ministry under Pavlo Lebedev and at the Education Ministry under Dmitry Tabachnik. He was acquainted with Yanukovych. Gideon argues that he does not have a hand in the Cossacks and that Poroshenko worked with Yanukovych too. Firstly, it's wrong. These documents are fake. I've never been a founder, and I was called in for questioning to the SBU, and I gave the investigator an explanation. Secondly, if we go this way, then our current president was prime minister under the criminal government of Yanukovych, which is bigger. But the registry's photos and old articles have better memory than the abbot. According to the property list, his service is rather profitable. The monk with 30 years of service has 2 apartments, a pricey Volkswagen minivan, and a not really humble Porsche Cayenne. Why do you care about what I have? I have a lot of precious friends. You must have some too. I have an expensive car. I may have anything. Where did you get the money to? I didn't buy any of that. I never did. The abbot had an epiphany in a couple of seconds. I have a car, yes, a Porsche. I have things. This is my private matter. I'm not asking about what you have. I have opportunities, I have friends, I have a fund. It's all registered for the fund. People help me. Something was given for a birthday. I didn't buy it with church money, for candles. That's ridiculous. I drive, and thank God for that. Rejoice in this. Jealousy is a terrible thing. Let us all rejoice in Gideon's precious friends. For example, the head of a religious community of Gideon's monastery is Mikhailo Goikman. Goikman achieved fame as an advisor to Arbuzov, then head of the National Bank, and as an author of the Hryvnia anthem. Now, Goikman says that he had helped Arbuzov only out of friendship. I was an NBU advisor under many heads from the 90s. But I was not a formal advisor. I was never a part of the NBU staff. I've never done any activities, you know. I gave friendly advice, promoted Hryvnia. Giving friendly advice to Arbuzov coincides with the time when courts were legalizing the monastery. Later there was some kind of ruling, something began there, and the court... at first they sued us. But the court looked at the documents, and it made the only possible decision. Why does a businessman need a monastery? He says that miracles happen here. I saw it with my own eyes. I have a friend, he has a wife. He tried to cure her in Germany, then they came back here. They held a service here for 3 days, right by this icon.
Вони сюди приїхали, повернулися, вони служили молебен 3 дня тут біля цієї ікони.
What can I say? She stood up within a month. Gideon and Goikman are connected by something bigger than the monastery. Of course, we've been friends for many years. I'm his confessor and a close friend, and a godfather to his children. This means that Godfather Gideon knows Goikman's son, Maxim Poroshenko. When the monastery was being constructed, Maxim was in the leadership of Ukroboronprom. Now, his social media page has photos with Gideon, First Deputy Secretary of the Security Council of Ukraine Oleg Hlodkovsky, and the head of Ukroboronprom Supervisory Board, Mikhailo Zgorovsky. The list of the monastery's friends is many times longer. In response to the protest, the clergy has announced a counter-prayer. Meet Yuri Tsikolenko. In 2010, he was a Party of Regions deputy in the Kiev Regional Council. During the Euromaidan, some media outlets called Tsikolenko supplier of thugs. Now, he leads the Union of Orthodox Forces. There's a rally going on here, and people are going to protest. This is not a protest, this is a peaceful rally to pray for peace in Ukraine. And this is Mikhailo Kulinyak. During the construction of the monastery, he was the Minister of Culture. He had the rule over the National History Museum at the time. I came to support peace, because I think that it is unacceptable to interfere with church matters. The war in the East is enough. We know from the stories that the biggest tragedies start with conflicts with the church. The second question is who, when, and how can solve this problem. Shemotyuk and Khorban made both MPs and officials awake from their slumber. Everyone agrees that this building is illegal. The Ministry of Culture says so. Moreover, if this property was somehow rendered operational, this was made in an illegal way, because no permissions were given and none could have been given for a construction of a permanent building on this land. The prosecutor's office. We need to go to court to cancel that registration. But the people who must physically come and dismantle the building are afraid. The inspector wanted to make a report, but then a lot of representatives of the religious community of the monastery appeared, and it is impossible to make a report in a conflict situation like that. Meanwhile, the clergy aren't sitting idle. They have upgraded the monastery with surveillance cameras, a thick chain on the door, and athletic men in trailers nearby. Which are also illegal, by the way. A person with an exquisite track record won a public competition for the position of the head of state service for ATO Veterans and Participants. He is accused of extortion, armed robbery, organization of a criminal court, and corruption, of course, but corruption, as you can see, isn't at the top of the list. And he is accused by the very people whose affairs he is assigned to care for in his new position. For the final flourish, the competition wasn't as public as it seemed from its name. At a public competition, at least some of the people other than the winner are interviewed. Now, Alexander Kurbatov's report. You became the winner of the final competition. Our congratulations. Valentin Menko's victory at the competition for the position of the head of state service for ATO Veterans and Participants triggered sparse applause from the commission and explosive outreach from the ATO Veterans and Participants. An organized crime group was headed by Menko. The police and the prosecution still keep this in secret. The state service for ATO Veterans and Participants is responsible for all treatment and rehabilitation programs, and not only for ATO veterans. This amounts to millions of dollars annually. TV interviews about caring for the veterans are a bonus. They can turn the position of the service's head into a ramp to quick political success. The competition for the position was obviously strange from the beginning, says ATO veteran Vitaly Kuzmenko. He served in reconnaissance for 1.5 years and then developed social programs for ATO veterans. Kuzmenko kept a close eye on the competition, yet barely noticed it. Neither the website of the service, the head of which was being chosen, nor the National Agency on Civil Services website had any info on the competition. Usually, competitions like that are crowded with candidates. This time, though, meager advertising had its consequences. Typically, 20 to 50 people apply for positions like that. This time, only 5 candidates showed up. Among them is Lieutenant Colonel Vitaly Baranov, an ATO veteran. He says that he barely had time to print out the information about the competition. I've called the commission to tell them that the information was gone from the website. They said they were going to solve this problem, but the information never reappeared. Vitaly aced the first stage, a test on law knowledge, got 39 out of 40 right. For the second stage, the participants were asked to imagine a report to the Cabinet of Ministers from the Veteran Service, which the candidates couldn't have known. I wrote that at first we should sum everything up, then to define the issues that hindered the service's operation, and then to set tasks for the future. A single candidate passed the second stage. Only Valentin Menko got to the interview stage of the competition. Yesterday, we gathered the first volunteer battalions which were at war. I was a battalion commander in the war. I completed battle operations. I was always leading the charge.
Ми розподілили в тому. Я був головним, я був як комбатом для всіх на фронті. Виконував бойові завдання, завжди йшов.
Menko had a wide range of responsibilities. That includes robbing the farmers on the front line. Alexander Petuha is one of the victims. In May 2014, Petuha, along with the fighters of the Donbass Battalion, was driving the militants out of his native town. He personally took down the DNR flag and hoisted the Ukrainian one. They're the village activists who decided to give battle to the separatists today. In a month, the man was kidnapped, but not by separatists, by Valentina Menko's unit. They put us on the ground, they tied our hands, they took us to the basement. Menko did the initial interrogation. While I was being held in the basement, they robbed my business. His enterprise lost vehicles and 200 tons of harvest. Then the robbers went for other farmers. When Petuha tried to organize the villagers into a militia, he was kidnapped again. This time, they also shot his leg. A jeep comes, everyone on the floor. I can see them moving towards me. Then they shoot. Got me right here in the thigh. It was fractured. Wounded Alexander was taken on a 30-minute trip to Dnipro City, where Menko was waiting for him. Menko got in the car. I recognized his voice and he told me, "Now you've done it. You shouldn't have stopped my vehicles from cutting pipes and shouldn't have gathered the hunters to resist us." Vladislav Poroshenko, a veteran of the right sector, had a similar story to tell. He says that Menko's thugs robbed farmers behind the front line. It was a plain man with a Dnipro license plate. He wanted to talk to one of the commanders. He was hysterical. He said that armed men are holding his wife and children hostage. From their camp near the Donetsk airport, Menko's unit traveled 130 kilometers away from the front line to the Dnipro region. Through binoculars, we saw people in new multicam uniforms on the territory, carrying 5.45 rifles. We disarmed them. They said they were Manco's people. Manco came personally, met with Dmytro Yarosh, and took back his people and their weapons. The police and prosecutor's office registries contain dozens of cases and complaints about Manco's people robbing farmers. Alexander Patuha's kidnapping was also addressed. I don't even want to comment on this. 99% of that is pure nonsense. Don't want to comment on that. The soon-to-be head of the state service keeps calm. I do not have any debts to the law. Everything was officially closed, no foul play. The competition's winner owes his calm to his circle of friends. If you have the impression that Manco is just a regional raider and robber, then you have it wrong. At the end of 2015, Manco's correspondence with MP Ihor Kononenko was published on the internet. When he was looking at up to 15 years in prison with forfeiture of property, the General Prosecutor's Office stepped in and dropped the charges. That infamous correspondence with Kononenko is dated to the same time. Valentin Manco himself stated that he did not cooperate with Kononenko before and doesn't cooperate now. Kononenko does not help with my organization. Don't make up my ties with Kononenko, please. But there's fresh proof of Manco's cooperation with Petro Poroshenko Bloc. Recently, a photo surfaced showing Manco together with Alexander Tretyakov, another one of Poroshenko's MPs. Good day, I am Vitaly Kropachov. A hero of our previous programs has confirmed cooperating with Manco, the coal underboss Vitaly Kropachov. We have partner relationships with him. A lot of veterans work in security companies. I employ his security companies. While the coal underboss talks about Manco's companies, the latter's declaration fails to mention any of them. So there are no companies, yet Kropachov actively employs them. Powerful connections to the government give Manco the confidence that the new law enforcement won't have any questions. Why do I have to give explanations? There's going to be a full special inspection. It will show everything. ATO veterans from 91 organizations want to get the information on the closed cases and complaints about the robbed farmers. They want to make the prosecutor's office investigate the crimes that Manco's gang committed in 2014 to 2015. We have invited him to a meeting to explain why he is hiding. If he is an honest person, a warrior, a fighter. Come to the people, explain yourself, explain the myths about yourself, debunk them, but he failed to show up. The veterans used every opportunity to talk to the future head. The latter promised dramatic changes in their cooperation. The guys will receive real help, not just words, you see. When the ATO veterans saw the long-awaited announcement of the meeting, they found out that neither they nor the journalists were invited. Valentin Manco personally confirmed this. He pretended that this is a meeting of his NGO only, a closed meeting only for its members. But yesterday, the Inter-TV channel aired a report telling about 30 veteran organizations rallying in Manco's support. We were shocked. Turned out he just lied to us.
Ну і вже для нас це шок, тому що він просто збрехав.
While the veterans were trying to catch Manco, Alexander Patuha, the farmer from Velika Novoselivka, tries to make the prosecutor's office investigate the crimes of Manco's gang. The most recent try was in January 2018. I am criminally liable for perjury. The judge explained to me that, okay, it was a group of people, but they won't mention Manco. The ATO veterans will demand a proper public compensation to be held with candidates who haven't broken the law in the past and who have commended themselves at war. That's all for today. You can watch any of our episodes on YouTube. Write us on social media. If you have anything interesting or secret to tell us, feel free to email us. See you on air in a week. Goodbye.
Ми побачимось вже за тиждень. До зустрічі.